On April 4th, 2017, Pepsi released the Live for Now Moments anthem. It's a minute-long commercial featuring Kendall Jenner, and it spreads the idea of buying Pepsi by connecting it with a social movement. So the ad was intended to spread a message of harmony. It was supposed to be a protest that Kendall Jenner sees and wants to go and get involved in. But instead, it trivialized the importance of the Black Lives Matter movement. So it used imagery similar to those campaigns that have been going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, but instead it undercuts the police brutality that African Americans have been constantly facing in the United States. So after a lot of criticism, this ad was eventually pulled from circulation and Pepsi released an official apology. Looking at the context and climate of the situation, the biggest problem with this communication breakdown was that the movement was too broad. So it used imagery from things like the Black Lives Matter protests or the now popular women's marches, but it didn't actually directly associate itself with one of those causes. It just claimed to be fighting for things like love and peace. So Pepsi released an advertisement to demonstrate positive corporate responsibility. And so by doing this, they wanted to demonstrate that they have positive social interests so that potential buyers can connect with them over this. But they admitted later that they completely missed the mark.
To begin, the first problem lies in Pepsi's display of cultural appropriation. Just 24 hours after the ad had been posted to YouTube, the campaign was being criticized for its appropriation of the Black Lives Matter movement, police brutality, and protests in general. This accusation has been a direct result of Pepsi's choice to center a white heroic figure in their storytelling of the battles of the world's marginalized groups. Next, we address the issue of colorblindness. By choosing Jenner to represent unity, peace, and understanding, Pepsi demonstrated their colorblindness to world issues. In an issue as serious as the Black Lives Matter movement, race cannot be ignored. One must look at who Kendall Jenner is as a symbol in culture to see why choosing her to be the face of this campaign may be deemed inappropriate to the global community. Third is the debate between instrumental and ethical motives. What must not be ignored in the analysis of Pepsi's campaign and the various issues that it held are the company's motives. While it may be true that Pepsi was seeking to spread a message of world unity and understanding, they placed an equal emphasis on spreading the message of their product. By casting Kendall Jenner and downplaying police brutality, the company did more than miss the mark, but instead emphasized the corrupt motives of the economy and tapping into consumers' emotions as a means for attaining profit. Lastly, we discussed the evident lack of internal cross-cultural training. How did no one catch that? What many find most troublesome in this entire controversy is that until the campaign was released to the global community, it was somehow possible that no one on Pepsi's team held the same reaction. The sheer fact that Pepsi's campaign made it to print has left the world in shock. If the company were to have proper cross-cultural training in place, perhaps this controversy could have been avoided.
In analyzing the conflict, we first and foremost see quite different perceptions of the ad. While Pepsi sought to capitalize on current social movements in the US and portray itself as a socially responsible brand, critics saw it as an outright offense against the very real struggles that activists face every day. Looking at Pepsi's communication dynamics, we can highlight at least 3 flaws in their media message. First, Pepsi fails to take a clear standpoint and openly showcase their values as a brand, which gives us the impression that they aren't really sincere about their support for activism. Secondly, choosing Jenner as a spokesperson for a movement that she is in no way associated with makes for a mixed and unclear marketing message. And lastly, the team behind the commercial completely disregarded the privileged cultural positioning of the ad, which made Pepsi come off as both ignorant and quite distasteful to many people. We can from this draw a connection to the Ogden-Richards triangle theory, which showcases the formation of meaning in communication contexts. In the case of the Pepsi commercial, there was a disconnection between the visual symbolism presented in the ad and the cultural reality of the groups that they sought to represent.
The unsuccessful ad campaign has resulted in ongoing consequences for all involved, the most obvious being the damage to Pepsi's brand image and reputation. The day following the ad's release, 58.6% of Pepsi's mentions across social media platforms were negative. As well as this, the failed campaign would have cost the company roughly $100 million. The face of the campaign, Kendall Jenner, may also face damages to her reputation, however it is expected not to affect her as significantly. The ad will also have ongoing social repercussions, potentially extending the power distance and damaging relationships between the cultural groups referenced and the privileged cultural position that Jenner and the Pepsi corporate team represent. The campaign also creates a means for the issue to be further trivialized and made comical by social media responses, drawing the attention away from the significance of the Black Lives Matter movement. Finally, this misappropriation of culture may deter influential companies in the future from weighing in on important social and political issues.
Overall strategies that could help Pepsi and other such corporations combat or divert situations like this will include the following 8 steps. The first step we outline is training. Involved in the training would be diversifying voices within the company, cultural awareness and intelligence, which is outlined in a further step, combating obliviousness by learning terms like cultural awareness, cultural intelligence, cultural appropriation, other such terms, and as well, just furthering their training process so that not everybody has the same mentality. Second step or strategy that we've outlined is revising the flow of information. To elaborate on this, we use the Shannon-Weaver model. So what we want to accentuate here is that it's not about efficiency. We would like to consider revising that flow of information to being a slower process so that the result is better. Additionally, communication involves interpretation, which is a part of Shannon-Weaver's model. So that's something to consider when we relay a message, the noise that might happen along the way, the source of who's saying it, which has to do with the who aspect, and the receiver, how they're interpreting it, of course. The third step is the distribution of power, which the strategy would be to diversify decision makers, which is a very popular conversation nowadays because of issues like this. The fourth step, and possibly the most important step as it's the most overarching theme throughout this whole report, is cultural awareness. Cultural awareness is something that could have prevented this catastrophe because it would help prevent the use of their colorblindness. It would help their tone deafness. They'd be more aware of the nuances of the situation. It would help in their acceptance, appreciation, knowledge of other cultures, and through training they can learn this cultural awareness in a way. Other than learning it through training, they as I mentioned in the previous slide, it would be important to have a more diverse board. The next step is fairly simple and short. It's revising the medium to fit the message. Of course, famously, Marshall McLuhan says, the medium is the message, and this is something to consider when posting any advertisement. So perhaps another medium may have been more effective, but regardless of that, test launches need to be done to see what medium would best suit it. The sixth step has to do with the choice of voices to be heard and represented. You want to choose a voice that's going to match the cause. Choosing Kendall Jenner was very controversial because she's just a wealthy white celebrity representing causes and movements that don't necessarily align with her personality. So the choice of voices to be heard and represented are important because choosing more marginal or subordinate voices could really help relate to the consumer more, and not only that, they can help reflect the message better. The next step plays off of Jürgen Habermas's theory of the system world and life world. Where the system world uses instrumental reason and is profit-oriented, the life world uses ethical reasoning and is more focused on morality. Of course, it's a corporation and it's a company, and profit is important. However, balancing profit with social responsibility is paramount to the functioning of their company as well. And this is something that can be achieved through the steps mentioned above, and by aligning with a specific cause as opposed to just jumping back and forth between no specific cause. The last step has to do with the after effects, how they handle the situation after it's happened. Of course, sometimes situations, even using all these strategies, cannot be prevented. And in that case, you have to know how to handle the repercussions effectively and appropriately. So to do so, Pepsi has released a statement that I feel is appropriate. However, it would be beneficial if they release more statements following, as more people backlash and have more to say. In addition to that, it would be helpful that if their ads to come directly after this one are really effective and really get people back on board.